thought about going to Ireland or possibly have ever been there, when I decided to give my informative speech on Ireland, it was because I've always had an interest. My last name is Sullivan. My husband says I'm an IBM. That's Irish by marriage, so I guess it doesn't really count. But it is a very intriguing country. When we started our journey, we started it in Galway, which is on the western coast. We went that evening to Dungarry Castle, and they still do medieval plays there. They have really nice period costumes. You have period food that can be done without, but it really was a very interesting evening. The following morning, we went down further on the coast to the Cliffs of Moher, and they are just an absolutely majestic spot. The day was misty and rainy, and you kind of almost feel like that's Ireland's weather, and it just was very fitting. But it was a very nice trip. We went on down to Kenmare, and that is a little village that we all enjoyed. It was so friendly. The town was so clean looking. All the buildings were freshly painted, it looked like. They have something that's really neat in Ireland, and it's their restaurants are really pubs. They welcome the children. They have live music there every evening, and it's just a really, really good time for everybody. We went up to Cork from there, and Blarney Castle is by Cork. And most everyone has heard of the Blarney Stone. And it is a stone that's supposed to give the people that kiss it eloquence. Well, my two granddaughters wanted to kiss the Blarney Stone. And up in the corner here is where it was located. And there's quite a line of people there to kiss the Blarney Stone. And we'll just have to see how that all goes. We went on to Kinsale, which is on the Celtic Sea. And that is the town that 2.5 million immigrants sailed out of during the potato famine era from middle 1800s, and they continued on through the middle 1900s. And there's a statue outside of the museum there, mother and children, and kind of looking off into the distance like they are waiting to leave to go to a better country. And it really is kind of a morbid feeling, really. We went into Dublin at that point. We had been advised not to drive the van in Dublin. The street system just really isn't all that terrific. Well, we know better. We're Americans. And after 2 hours of driving around, my husband parked the van, and we've all putting in our 2 cents worth as to where we really are located. And all of a sudden, outside of the left-hand side of the van, this little old Irishman appears. And he's got a pint or two in him. And he says, "So it's lost, are you?" Well, we just kind of really cracked up at that point. It eased the tension. He gave wonderful directions, and we went to the hotel. And guess what? We parked the van, didn't use it again. And the following day, we took they have beautiful, wonderful open deck buses. And the drivers are very good about telling you everything that you're seeing and all this. And we went by the doors of Dublin. And it's Georgian townhouses that each one of the front doors is painted a different color. There's a myth. There are a lot of myths in Ireland. There was a myth here. And the myth is that there were 2 authors that lived next to each other, Moore and Getgary. And they both drank a little bit. And Moore would go out at night, and he'd come home, and he'd be pounding on Getgary's door, thinking it was his own. So Getgary got a little upset with this and decided to paint his door green. So then Moore did the same thing, only painted his red, and supposedly they never woke each other up from that point. The following day, we went to what I think is one of the most interesting places. It's Kilmainham Jail. And it has a very storied past. There were many of the independence fighters that were jailed there. Many were executed there through the Home Rule period through 1916 and on. One of the most famous was Charles Stewart Parnell. He was a fighter for the Home Rule, and he was jailed there. And his sister, Anna, at that particular point, decided to take up her brother's cause, and she joined the Ladies' Land League to fight for Home Rule. The assistant professor from West Virginia, Lisa Weirman, did an article, went there and researched and did an article on Anna, and it really was pointed out her importance in it. However, her brother wasn't very nice about the whole thing. He got out of jail and took over the Women's Land League and turned it into his. The author James Joyce wrote The Shades of Parnell, and he was very, very interested in Parnell's life. And also Yeats was very interested, wrote a lot of articles and poems on him. However, Parnell had a problem. He was hopelessly in love with a married woman. And the ministers in Ireland deemed him a sinner. So therefore, they wouldn't back Home Rule. So his reign was over, even though he was referred to as Ireland's uncrowned king. Then there was Joseph Plunkett. And by the way, this is the interior of the jail there. And it really is quite a building. However, once you get out of the main part and you get into the hallways, it is very, very, very depressing. But it's a jail. Anyway, Joseph Plunkett was one of the planners of the Easter Rising. He and his band were jailed and were set to be executed by firing squad. The morning of the execution, he was allowed to marry in the jail. And Morgan Llewellyn, the writer, wrote the book 1916, and she depicted the wedding very, very well. She said that the only thing that they weren't allowed to touch except to exchange rings. Well, there is a myth, another myth, the Banshee of Kilmainham Jail. And they say that there is just a sorrowful wail that people have heard from time to time there. My own opinion, Plunkett's bride. All too quickly, we were done with our tour of Ireland. And it was sad just walking the streets knowing that we might not go back. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful country. Being Irish and being history buffs, this was the trip of a lifetime for us. However, there are so many things there for so many different people that they can enjoy. The castles are wonderful. The people are wonderful themselves. The history in the country, the little villages. There are just many, many things for many people. I'm hoping that if any of you are travelers at heart, that one day you're able to go and see my Ireland. Thank you. I think you got to shut it off.
We're going to pan out.
Oh.
Hey, Miriam.